in which one knows enough to dovetail himself in the transcendental loving service of the Lord. One must know that he is finite and that the Lord is infinite. Thus it is not possible to actually become one with the Lord, even if one aspires for this. It is simply not possible. Therefore, anyone who has any desire or aspiration for satisfying his senses by becoming more and more important, either in the material sense or in the spiritual sense, cannot actually relish the really sweet taste of devotional service. Srila Rupa Goswami has therefore compared possessing these bhukti, material, and mukti, liberation, desires, with being influenced by the black art of a witch. In both cases, one is in trouble. Bhukti means material enjoyment, and mukti means to become free from material anxiety, to become one with the Lord. These desires are compared to being haunted by ghosts and witches, because while these aspirations for material enjoyment or spiritual oneness with the Supreme remain, no one can relish the actual transcendental state of devotional service. So here I want to comment, insert rant on impersonalism. This impersonal oneness with the Lord is a very, very great misunderstanding and a tremendous stumbling block on the actual path of spiritual advancement. So, unfortunately, it's very common in the Kali Yuga that people will acquire some faith in this impersonal approach. But as we discussed recently in the beginning of the third canto of Bhagavad Gita, Krishna rejects the impersonal approach, which is based on speculation, philosophical speculation, and word jugglery. He rejects their approach or their idea that self-realization is attained through renunciation. And he says that the candidates who attempt to approach the Supreme by the transcendental work, by dedicating the results of their work in sacrifice, yajna, are far superior, far better. That's Krishna's opinion. So if we at all value Krishna's opinion, then we will give up this desire for liberation or desire for becoming one with the Lord in favor of pure devotional service. So Srila Rupa Goswami, he says that the desire for material enjoyment or for becoming one with the Lord are like a person who is influenced by the black art of a witch. Technically, we call this being under the whammy. When a person's under the whammy, they cannot see reality. For example, they may be in an abusive or otherwise unhealthy relationship, but they can't seem to get out of this relationship. They can't seem to develop the determination to take the steps necessary to get out because they're attached because of sense gratification. And they want to experience this sense gratification, and so they're afraid to leave the relationship. Or their intelligence is covered and they just can't see that this is an unhealthy, bad relationship. So in this way they remain attached even though they're suffering like anything. Why? Because they're under the whammy. They're being manipulated by someone with evil purposes. So we see this all the time, that so-called spiritual teachers will take up this impersonalist nonsense, which is based on all kinds of false arguments and bad logic. And then innocent people who have no spiritual knowledge will become trapped in it, basically. Like a fly who lands on a fly paper. The more that they struggle, the more they become stuck. So similarly, people who become attached to this impersonal misinterpretation of the Vedas, they become more and more entangled in the webs of false logic until they can't tell what is true. They can't tell truth from untruth, basically. They lose the ability to sense truth. Or to put it bluntly, their bullshit detector gets turned off. And they accept this false, bogus argument. I mean, you ask any man on the street, are you God? And of course he'll say, no, of course I'm not God. Well, can you ever become God? Yeah, come on, are you kidding? You got to be nuts. To even ask the question, you have to be a little nuts. Most people, by common sense, will immediately reject the idea that they are God. Yet somehow or other, otherwise intelligent people can be seen to accept this idea, this theory, even without any evidence or without any verifiable process that would lead to it. And which wouldn't be so bad, except they reject the idea of devotional service. You see, the people who profit by keeping others deluded don't want them to understand the process of devotional service, because as soon as you execute the process of devotional service, you get reciprocation from Krishna. There's some tangible result. But the process of impersonal realization is so nonsensical and illogical that you can execute it for your whole life and never get any result. And of course they simply blame the practitioner that, oh, you must be doing something wrong, or you haven't got it. You know, you haven't really understood that black is white and up is down. So people go along their whole life trying to become realized in this impersonal nonsense, and they can't really attain anything. But they think it's their fault. Well, this is being under the whammy. No, the whole thing they're trying to do is impossible in the first place. You can never become God. If it was possible that we could become God, we would already be God. Because God is always God. God never falls down from being God. That's what omnipotent means. God is omnipotent. God never comes under the influence of illusion. If he did, then he wouldn't be God. He wouldn't be all-powerful, you see? He wouldn't have all knowledge, omniscient, see? Because it would mean that his knowledge could be covered by illusion. And he wouldn't be all-pervading, omnipresent. Because if he could be covered by something else, then he wouldn't be all-pervading, you see? So the fact that God is omniscient, omnipotent, and omnipresent means he can never come under the influence of illusion. He can never become fragmented. He can never fall down. He can never be covered by illusion or ignorance. So there's no way that it's possible for us to be God. Simply not possible. So anyone who believes this nonsense is like, so they're cursed, or they're under the whammy, they're under a spell of a witch called Maya. But because they're attached to sense gratification, they stay in that philosophy, because in that philosophy you can do whatever you like. After all, you're God, right? So what the heck? There's no restrictions. This is a big trap. And many people are caught in this trap. The New Agers, the yogis, mostly today, are totally caught up in this impersonal philosophy. It's very, very dangerous, because a person who subscribes to this philosophy cannot engage in the devotional service of the Lord. So that means they can't get out of the material entanglement. It's that simple. So let's continue. A pure devotee never cares for liberation. Lord Chaitanya Mahaprabhu prayed to Krishna, "My dear son of Nanda, I do not want any material happiness in the shape of many followers, nor immense opulence in wealth, nor any beautiful wife, nor do I want cessation from material existence. I may take birth many times, one after another, but what I pray to you is that my devotion unto you may always remain unflinching. The attention of a pure devotee is so much attracted to glorification of the Lord's pastimes, name, qualities, forms, etc., that the devotee does not care for mukti. Sri Bilvamangala Thakur has said, "If I am engaged in devotional service unto you, my dear Lord, then very easily can I perceive your presence everywhere. And as far as liberation is concerned, I think liberation stands at my door with folded hands, waiting to serve me."